Today, I'm just sitting on my Chesterfield, drinking my double-double from Timmy's, watching my Habs play a little shinny on the boob tube. If you know what that means, you're probably Canadian. If you have no idea what I just said, then this video is for you. Today, I want to talk about some bands in Canada that I think you should probably hear. Hey everybody, welcome back to Northern Revolutions. My name's Rob. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new. So for those of you that have seen some of my previous videos, you know that I kind of have a thing for Canadian music. I have had this idea rolling around in my head for a little while, since before I started my channel, which was only a week ago, that I wanted to do a video showcasing some of the talent in this country that doesn't get widely acknowledged, even within this country, let alone outside of our borders. And in my travels on YouTube in the last week or so, I stumbled across a fellow Canadian that actually lives about 2.5 hours from here. His name's also Robert, and he's got a channel called On My Turntable. And he just did a video just like this, Canadian bands that you need to hear. So, not that I'm stealing his idea, but I would like to do one as well. And I might even make this a recurring thing, because the depth of my catalog, or my collection when it comes to Canadian music, is pretty deep. So, I'd like to talk about a few bands today that I think you'd like to hear. We have a really, really strong musical heritage in this country. Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, The Band, Rush, Leonard Cohen, Shania Twain, Alanis Morissette, Bryan Adams, Gordon Lightfoot, the Guess Who. Although, we probably should apologize for Celine Dion and Justin Bieber. Sorry. At any rate, we have a really thriving music culture in this country, and have for decades. So today I want to talk about a few bands that I love that I hope maybe you'll like as well. I'll put links to some of their videos in my description so that you can check them out. So without further ado, here's some Canadian music you need to hear. All right, so the first band that I want to talk about, if you saw my first video, which was my intro to the VC, I talked about this band, and I talked about how they have played a huge role in my life. These guys up behind me, Blue Rodeo. Blue Rodeo is a Canadian musical institution. They have been around for 35 years. They are legendary within this country, and not very well known outside of this country. They're a country rock, roots rock band. They were formed in Toronto in '84, put out their first album in '87. In the ensuing 34 years or whatever it's been, they've put out 16 studio albums. They've had 2 live albums, and they've had a greatest hits album. They are the most decorated band in the history of the Juno Awards. The Juno Awards are the Canadian equivalent of the Grammys. They've won 12 times, 5 times for Group of the Year, and I've won Album of the Year a few times. They've been nominated 21 additional times. So the most decorated band in this country in terms of our music awards. They're in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. They have a star on the Canadian Walk of Fame, which was like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, same kind of thing. They received the Governor General's Performing Arts Award. I mean, they've won everything there is to win. I'm going to pick one album from each of these bands that I'm going to talk about. So the one that I want to show you is this album right here. It's called Outskirts. This was their first album. This was the one that came out in 1987. It says remix here because this is the remixed, remastered version that came out in 2012. It's a far superior mix to the original, but it's a fantastic record. If you're going to start somewhere with Blue Rodeo, you start with this one. The two lead singles off of here are legendary in our musical fabric. There's a song called Try, which is just an incredible ballad. And there's another song called Rose-Colored Glasses. The Rodeo is an interesting band in that they have two lead singers, Jim Cuddy and Greg Keeler. Sound completely different, but it just works. So Try is a Jim song and Greg sang Rose-Colored Glasses. I'll link a video to both of those songs. So if I were to recommend one Canadian band to try first, it's Blue Rodeo. And this album, Outskirts, amazing. The next band I want to talk about is another band I have seen many times, like Blue Rodeo. Love this band. It's a guy by the name of Matt Mays. Now, Matt was born in Hamilton, Ontario, which is not too far from where I am, near Toronto, near Buffalo, but was raised in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, which is out on the East Coast. He originally started as a member of a band called the Guthries, but then in 2005, Matt put out his first solo album, which was a self-titled release. In that time, he has put out 8 studio albums, and he's put out a live album. I mentioned when I did my Vinyl Tag video, his live album, which is incredible. Matt has been nominated for 5 Junos. He's won once for Rock Album of the Year for his album Coyote back in 2014. Matt is good, honest, loud rock and roll. He started a little rootsier, and now he's very, very, very rock and roll. But it's fantastic. He's been on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He toured with Kid Rock. Don't let that dissuade you from listening to Matt's music by any means. The album I want to highlight from Matt's catalog is an absolutely outstanding release called Terminal Romance. Terminal Romance came out in 2008, and it's just a great, powerful rock album. If I were to suggest 2 songs off of here, Digital Eyes and Tall Trees. If there's videos for them, I'll link them. I'll link something off of this album so that you can check him out. Incredible rock album. The next artist is one that I champion whenever I get the chance to mention him. It's a guy by the name of Adam Baldwin. I think he's an undiscovered national treasure. I really do. I've met Adam several times and is probably the most humble musician you'll ever meet. But man, is he talented. He plays lead guitar for Matt Mays, which is how he got his start, which is how I saw him the first time. He put out a solo EP in 2013, which I featured in my Vinyl Tag video as my best pickup of last year. He has since put out a full-length album, and he's got 4 EPs in total. One of the things that Adam has done, which I don't have words to describe how incredible I think it is. During the first set of lockdowns that we had up here in Canada at the start of the pandemic, when morale was pretty low, Adam got on YouTube and he did a live show, which he called the Cross Country Chin Up. It's a Newfoundland, or it's an East Coast phrase, chin up. And he just wanted to kind of get us all together for a virtual hangout and, lift everyone's spirits. And boy, did he. That 2-hour show was so successful, he's gone on to do it 27 times, I believe. 27. He's still doing them. There's one tonight. Absolutely incredible. All I can say is check out his music. It's absolutely wonderful. His full-length album, which came out in 2016, is called No Telling When. It is a very 80s rock album. He sort of genre shifted within rock quite a bit. This is a great, very 80s rock, Miami Vice sort of feel to it, but It's incredible. If I could recommend a couple songs off of here, Battle Scar and Rodeo is one of the best emotional songs that I've ever heard. Quick story about Adam. I saw him open up for another artist at a theater venue that there was 2,000 people there, and no one was there to see him because no one except for probably me knew who he was. And he walked on stage with an acoustic guitar, and he sat on a stool. It was just him. And by the end of that first song, he had all 2,000 of those people wrapped around his finger. It was the most awe-inspiring concert performance I've ever seen. I cannot rave enough about Adam Baldwin. To that note, I'm going to move on to the next artist. The next artist is a band. I don't know if I've mentioned them. I may have. It's a band from Oshawa, Ontario, which is just the other side of Toronto, called Cuff the Duke. They're a indie rock, folk rock, I guess country rock band that was founded by Wayne Petty and Paul Lohman in 2005. They've put out 6 albums. They've had 2 EPs. They've toured in support of Blue Rodeo many, many times. They received a lot of critical acclaim towards the last few albums that they put out. They're not broken up. They're on an indefinite hiatus. All the members are visiting other projects. They're just like they're like a harder version of the Byrds, maybe. I don't know, but they're wonderful. And the album I want to highlight from them is their self-titled album called Cuff the Duke. This came out in 2005. It was their second album. It's a great record. If I could highlight 2 songs on here, The Future Hangs and Antisocial. And again, I'll see if I can link videos for this. Check out Cuff the Duke. They're a great indie rock, alt country. Alt country is a pretty good description. Wonderful. Another band that I think you should hear is a band called the Sadies. They're from Toronto. It's Dallas and Travis Good, they're brothers, along with 2 other guys, Sean Dean and Mike Beletsky. The band was formed in 94, and their first album came out in 98. I'm lost for words. They're a chameleon, let's say that. They're rock, they're country, they're alternative. They play everything, and they play with everybody. They have done 20 albums. One of those is a live album. 6 of those are compilation albums. One of them is a soundtrack. And they do everything from heavy alternative to psychedelic country. They play everything. They're wonderful. Wickedly talented guitarists, the 2 brothers. The album from them that I want to highlight is very scarce, but it's In Concert Volume 1. This is the modern Canadian equivalent to the band's Last Waltz. It's like the Last Waltz was a blueprint for this record. The Last Waltz, for anybody who hasn't seen it, was the band. It was their final concert. It was essentially they did a set, and they brought on a bunch of their famous friends, Neil Young and Eric Clapton and Bob Dylan, and it was just a giant jam session. That's exactly what this concert was. I think it was a 2-night show at Lee's Palace in Toronto. The first disc of this is just the Sadies. The second disc is them and all their friends. So guys from Blue Rodeo, John Spencer, Heavy Trash, the genres that are on the second disc of this record from the same live show is just incredible. So check out the Sadies. If I could recommend 2 songs off here, off the first disc, Ridge Runner Reel, which is a country chicken picking, but not what you would expect. It's blistering by the time it finishes. And on the second two discs are the guests. They do an amazing cover of Evangeline, which the band did in the Last Waltz. So the Sadies. The last band that I think you need to hear, and I've mentioned them in my vinyl tag video, is a band called Whitehorse. Whitehorse is a husband and wife, Luke Doucette and Melissa McClelland. They formed 10 years ago in Hamilton, which is not too far from Toronto. They each had their own respective solo careers. Luke was the guitarist for Sarah McLachlan, who I'm sure everyone has heard of. And he's done a lot of other solo stuff as well. Luke and Melissa got together, and they initially started as an indie alternative, band. And what was interesting, and I think I mentioned this in another video, their first few albums when they did live shows, it was just them on stage, nobody else, and they played all the instruments: guitar, bass, acoustic guitar, drums, percussion, keyboards, organ, you name it. They did all of it, and they did it with looper pedals. And they would start off, one person would play the drums and loop it, and then Melissa would pick up the bass and she'd play the bass line and loop it, and they just keep building the song until they had all the instruments and they'd be playing. Incredible to see live. They have shifted genres from indie alternative to alternative folk to rock. They did 2 EPs, which have now been pressed into one vinyl record. It was their take on Southern blues, but done Whitehorse style, which they were nominated for a Juno Award for. They're now in a very sort of psychedelic experimental phase. They just put out 2 records last year that are in that vein. The record I want to talk about is their Juno Award-winning album of the year, Leave No Bridge Unburned. It's a rock record. It's fantastic. If I could suggest 2 songs off here, Tame as the Wild Ones and Fake Your Death and I'll Fake Mine. And again, for all of these, I'll link to the videos. So, Blue Rodeo, Matt Mays, Adam Baldwin, Cuff the Duke, the Sadies, and Whitehorse. Those are Canadian bands that I think you should check out. I love them, and I wish more people did. I could go on for hours about other bands, but I'll leave it there, and maybe I'll do another one of these next month with some more Canadian bands that you'd like to hear. Thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out my videos. If you would be so kind, give me a like, possibly give me a subscribe. That helps build my channel. I very much appreciate that. Thank you, vinyl community. I'm really enjoying doing YouTube videos, so I'd like to keep doing it. Thanks again, everybody. Stay tuned. I'll be back real soon. Catch you on the flip side.